U.S. President Joe Biden has called on Republican Party members to back a bill to provide more aid to Ukraine. Ukraine's funding was dropped at the insistence of some hardline Republicans as the U.S. Senate passed a stopgap funding bill. The funding bill aimed to avert the government from shutting down. Meanwhile, Ukraine's defense minister has said that he has received reassurances from the U.S. regarding further military assistance. The European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell visited Kyiv on Sunday. During his visit, Borrell promised to not only continue but also increase the bloc's support for Ukraine. He said that the EU will increase its military support for Ukraine before the end of the year. In Slovakia, a pro-Russia party led by Robert Fico has won the parliamentary elections. They had a clear lead with almost 24% of the vote. This contradicts exit polls that suggested that the liberal centrist party would win. Fico is now expected to start a coalition talks on forming the next Slovakian government. Turkish warplanes carried out airstrikes on suspected Kurdish militant targets in northern Iraq. Turkey said some 20 military installations of the Kurdistan Workers' Party were destroyed in the operation. This comes after two people carried out a bomb attack in front of the Turkish Interior Ministry buildings. The attack took place in the capital Ankara on Sunday. The Turkish government said that both attackers died in the explosion. At least 13 people were killed after a fire tore through a nightclub in Spain. Rescuers are still searching for people unaccounted for after the blaze. The cause of the fire is being investigated. Some local reports from Spain say multiple birthday celebrations were underway at the time. The reports didn't say if the celebrations led to the fire. More than 100,000 refugees have arrived in Armenia in under 1 week. This is according to the UN refugee agency UNHCR. The exodus began after Azerbaijan conducted a military operation to retake control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Nagorno-Karabakh has been a disputed region between Azerbaijan and Armenia. It's internationally recognized as a part of Azerbaijan, but it has been under the control of ethnic Armenian residents for 3 decades. In the UK, protesters took to the streets of Manchester. Demonstrators marched through the city centre, waving flags and chanting slogans as police officers stood close by. One group was heard chanting, "Get Rishi out," referring to the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The protests erupted as Britain's ruling Conservative Party kicked off their annual conference in Manchester. The conference will run until Wednesday. Clashes between protesters and police erupted in Iraq's capital Baghdad on Sunday. This was after protesters took to the streets to commemorate the 4th anniversary of the October protests that began in 2019. The protesters held Iraqi flags and set fire to garbage in the street while calling for the revolution to continue. In 2019, protests erupted against Iraq's then Prime Minister Abdel Mahdi's government. The demonstrators demanded an overhaul of Iraq's political system, which they deemed corrupt. Hundreds of thousands of people gathered for an opposition rally in Poland's capital, Warsaw. The rally was organized by Poland's opposition party and comes 2 weeks ahead of the country's parliamentary elections. Opinion polls suggest the incumbent Conservative Law and Justice Party is likely to win the election. Meanwhile, the opposition hoped Sunday's march would become the biggest in decades. This would allow them to build momentum and oust the Conservative Party that has ruled Poland since 2015. Former U.S. President Donald Trump held a campaign in the American state of Iowa on Sunday. During the rally, he said that his indictment was a great honor. He claims he was indicted because Democrats don't want to compete against him in the 2024 presidential election. Trump made the remarks just a day before the opening of his New York civil trial. It is scheduled to begin today. The main candidates for Argentina's presidential race clashed in the first debate of their campaign. They traded barbs over who was to blame for the country's economic crisis. They also debated their views on ways to end the downturn of the economy. Last month, data showed that Argentina's inflation shot up to a whopping 124%. 9 people died and 40 were injured after a church roof collapsed in Mexico. Another 30 people are said to be trapped under the debris. Rescuers and volunteers were seen removing debris such as wooden pillars with their bare hands. The Mexican rescue workers were searching for survivors. At least 10 Cuban migrants have died and 17 others were seriously injured in Mexico. This is after a cargo truck ferrying them met with an accident. Mexican officials say the Ford truck carrying the migrants did not have the capacity to accommodate so many people. They also added that the driver fled the scene of the accident. In climate news, people in Spain are experiencing sweltering conditions as temperatures increase higher than usual this month. According to the Spanish weather agency, temperatures would rise between 6 to 10 degrees Celsius. This has raised concerns about the effects of climate change among the residents. Some parts of Spain are under a high fire risk. The southeast region of Australia is witnessing sweltering heat. It has increased the risk of bushfires. The nation's weather forecaster has said that temperature is likely to reach 12 degrees Celsius above average in some areas. Australia faces a high risk of bushfires as it experiences an El Niño weather event. The El Niño is typically associated with extreme events like wildfires, cyclones, and droughts. Switzerland, Poland, Germany, France, Belgium, and Austria experienced their hottest September on record. The year 2023 is likely to be the warmest year in human history. In France, the highest temperatures surged past 38 degrees Celsius. In Poland, September temperatures were 3.6 degrees Celsius higher than average. In Germany, the temperature was almost 4 degrees Celsius higher than average. More than 60,000 protesters gathered in the Swiss capital Bern to demand tougher policies to combat climate change. The protest comes less than a month ahead of a national election. Such large protests are rare in Switzerland. It shows growing public frustration with the pace of policy making to tackle global warming. Reports show that Switzerland's glaciers have shrunk by 10% in 2 years. The sudden death of more than 100 Amazonian river dolphins has prompted fears of rising global heat. Floating corpses of the endangered mammals appeared at Lake Tefe. The water in this lake is drying up as the region is experiencing drought conditions. Brazil has witnessed unusually extreme weather in recent months. This is a consequence of climate breakdown triggered by human-related activities. A state of emergency was declared in New York City over the weekend due to flash floods. Many of the subway stations, streets, and highways were flooded. Governor Kathy Hochul called it a dangerous and life-threatening storm. No deaths have been reported, though. New York Police Department officials announced multiple road closures, and the National Guard has been deployed. Major oil and gas company chiefs held discussions with heavy industry bosses on Sunday. The meetings were held in the United Arab Emirates. They aim to arrive on a firm commitment to reduce carbon emissions ahead of the United Nations Climate Summit next month. The COP28 is seen as a crucial opportunity for governments to accelerate action to limit global warming. On to business and tech news now. US President Joe Biden signed a stopgap funding bill into law on Saturday. The bill avoids the federal government's partial shutdown. It will fund the government for the next 45 days. A US government shutdown would have placed tens of thousands of federal employees on furlough without pay. It would have also suspended various government services. British Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt will announce a hike in the country's minimum wage today. This is according to excerpts from a speech released by the British Conservative Party ahead of the announcement. The UK's minimum wage will be increased to at least $13 per hour from the present $12. However, Hunt is not expected to make any announcement on tax cuts. This is despite growing calls from the UK's Conservative Party lawmakers who have asked for tax cuts repeatedly. Credit Suisse has shed nearly 13% of its workforce in the past 12 months. This is according to a financial report published by the bank. It showed that the number of employees fell to about 34,000 at the end of June this year. This is compared to nearly 39,000 workers in the same period last year. This highlights the turmoil at Credit Suisse after it was taken over by rival UBS earlier this year. America's United Auto Workers Union has expanded its strikes at additional plants of Ford and General Motors. This comes after negotiations failed to proceed between the two automakers and the union. However, an extension at additional facilities of Stellantis was averted after significant changes were made to its labor contract. The UAW has been striking against the Detroit 3 automakers since last month. They've been demanding a 40% pay hike and a revision of their current agreement. Meanwhile, the union has dropped charges of unfair labor practices against General Motors and Stellantis. In August, the UAW had filed the charges against the two automakers with America's National Labor Relations Board. The UAW had accused General Motors and Stellantis of refusing to bargain in good faith. The US Labor Board has accused Amazon of violating the terms of an earlier settlement. It has been accused of breaching a 2021 agreement to allow its workers to unionize. The e-commerce giant has denied the accusations. Last year, workers at Amazon's New York City warehouse voted to form the first union at the company. About 88 British retailers have signed a letter to Interior Minister Suella Braverman. This includes companies like Tesco, Sainsbury's and Marks & Spencer. They have demanded action over rising rates of retail crime. A survey by the British Retail Consortium shows that abuse towards retail workers almost doubled compared to pre-pandemic levels. The report said that more than 800 incidents occurred every day between 2021 and 2022. US carrier JetBlue Airways has filed a complaint to the US Department of Transportation. This is against the Netherlands' move to curb traffic at Amsterdam's Schiphol airport. Earlier this month, the Dutch government said it would cap the number of flights in the airport to reduce noise. JetBlue says this violates a US-EU transport agreement. Apple says it has identified a few issues that are causing its new iPhone 15s to get warmer than expected. The company says that this is due to a bug in its new software version, iOS 17. Third-party apps like Instagram and Uber are also causing the phone to heat up unusually. While Instagram has already fixed the issue, Apple says it will roll out an update to fix the iOS 17 bug. A Tokyo-based startup has developed a 15-foot-tall four-wheeled robot. It has two modes, the robot mode and a vehicle mode. In its vehicle mode, the machine can travel up to 10 kilometers per hour. The company aims to sell the machine as a toy for robot fans. It plans to sell it for $2.7 million each. Moving to sports, here are the updates from the Asian Games. India's Avinash Sable won gold in the men's 3,000-meter steeplechase race. Sable led the race from start to finish to set a new Asian Games record. He registered a time of 8 minutes and 19.5 seconds. Despite setting a new milestone, Sable's Asian Games win was still 8 seconds slower than his personal best this season. India continued to dominate track and field events at the Asian Games yesterday. Tajinder Pal Singh Toor clinched gold in men's shot put. He defended his Asian Games title with a throw of 20.36 meters. The Indian shot putter got off to a shaky start with 2 foul throws. Toor's medal-winning throw came in his 6th and final attempt. India's Jyoti Yaraji won silver in the women's 100-meter hurdles after some false start drama. China's Wu Yani got off to an early start. The Indian Yaraji followed Wu and began running as well. The Asian Games officials ruled out Wu and Yaraji, which the Indian contested. Then the race was allowed to carry on as normal, with Yaraji finishing third. After a thorough review process, Yaraji was awarded silver and China's Wu was disqualified according to false start rules. India won bronze in both the men's and women's 3,000 meter speed skating relay race. The podiums were identical for both events. The Indian men's and women's teams bagged the bronze, while South Korea won silver and Chinese Taipei took the gold. On to other sports. In cricket, New Zealand captain Kane Williamson will miss the World Cup opener against England. This is because Williamson still needs time to recover from a knee surgery. New Zealand's head coach says Captain Williamson is recovering well but won't be pressured into returning till he's ready. In football, AS Roma beat Frosinone Calcio 2-0 in the Serie A League match last night. Striker Romelu Lukaku scored the first goal for Roma in the 21st minute. Roma sealed the win with a late goal from Lorenzo Pellegrini in the second half. In tennis, world number 2 Carlos Alcaraz advanced to the quarter-final at the China Open. Spain's Alcaraz beat Italy's Lorenzo Musetti 6-2, 6-2 in straight sets. The Spaniard will next face Norwegian Casper Ruud. Meanwhile, world number 1 Arina Sabalenka also advanced at the China Open. Belarusian Sabalenka beat American Sofia Kenin 6-1, 6-2 in the round of 64. Sabalenka will now play against Britain's Katie Boulter tomorrow. In golf, Europe beat the US to win the prestigious Ryder Cup. The competition was played in Italy's capital, Rome. Europe needed 4 points on the last day to beat the American side. England's Tommy Fleetwood and Ireland's Shane Lowry played some spectacular shots to turn the game around and win the cup for Europe. The Ryder Cup is a biennial men's golf competition between teams from Europe and the US. In MotoGP, Ducati's Jorge Martin won the Japanese Grand Prix. Despite rainy and slippery conditions, the 25-year-old Spaniard completed the 21 laps in just 24 minutes and 6 seconds. Martin's Ducati teammate Francesco Bagnaia finished 1 minute and 41 seconds later to secure the second spot. Honda's Marc Marquez finished third to complete the podium. In the world of entertainment, singer Taylor Swift traveled to the U.S. State of New Jersey to watch the American football team Kansas City Chiefs take on the New York Jets. This comes amid rumors that Taylor Swift is dating NFL player Travis Kelce. The pair's relationship reportedly sent the National Football League's ticket sales and television viewership soaring. Swift was seen in the audience with other celebrities including Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman and Blake Lively. Comedian and TV show host John Oliver has said that he's furious with Hollywood studios and that how they prolonged the writers' strike. Oliver spoke about the strike in the latest episode of his show Last Week Tonight. He said it took 148 days to strike a deal, something that could have been done in 1 day. Oliver highlighted the sacrifices that Hollywood writers have had to make to be able to strike a deal with studios. Zelda Williams, the daughter of late American actor and comedian Robin Williams, has spoken out against the use of artificial intelligence in Hollywood. This comes after AI was used to recreate the sound of her father's voice. Zelda Williams said, and I quote, "I'm not an impartial voice in SAG's fight against AI. I have witnessed for years how many people want to train these models to create or recreate actors who cannot consent." She added that she found it personally disturbing and that the ramifications went beyond her own feelings. American boy band NSYNC have released their first song together in 20 years. The song, called Better Place, will be featured in the animated movie Trolls Band Together. NSYNC was one of the most successful bands in the 1990s. The group's last studio album came out in 2001. NSYNC went on a hiatus in 2002 before the group eventually disbanded. Singer Ed Sheeran has revealed that his latest album, Autumn Variations, will have no singles or music videos. Autumn Variations is Sheeran's second album this year. The project is the singer's first independent release on Gingerbread Man Records, which he founded. Sheeran has also said that taking an independent route is important as he wants to step away from being a big-budget pop star. K-pop band BTS member Jungkook's solo album is set to release by the end of this year. During a recent interview, Jungkook shared insights into his upcoming plans for his solo career, saying his solo album is on its way. Jungkook has delivered back-to-back hits, including 7 with American rapper Lotto and 3D featuring American singer Jack Harlow. Singer Britney Spears shared a personal message on Instagram a month after her husband Sam Asghari filed for divorce. She said, "I'm lucky to have amazing friends. Positive affirmations are important to me at the moment." She posted the caption with an image with her friend and manager Cade Hudson. Asghari filed for a divorce from Spears 14 months after the two got married. Gangster Dwayne Keith Davis has been indicted over the murder of late singer Tupac Shakur. Tupac was killed in Las Vegas in the US in 1996. Davis has been indicted on 1 count of open murder with the use of a deadly weapon. The Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department said that the family of Tupac Shakur waited for 27 years for justice. The late singer's sister has described it as a pivotal moment. A movie based on the tragic story of OceanGate's Titan submersible is in the works. Producer E. Brian Dobbins has taken up this project. Screenwriter Jonathan Kesey has been roped in as one of the scriptwriters. He said, and I quote, "Our film will not only honor all those involved in that submersible tragedy and their families, but address a more macro concern about the nature of media today." Oprah Winfrey has spoken out about the stigma attached to gaining weight in the entertainment industry. She said, and I quote, "I don't know if there's another public person whose weight struggle has been exploited as much as mine over the years." Oprah said the world has shamed people for being overweight forever, and people treat overweight people differently.